The United States Congress passed a law last year that erased 12 years of Medicare's financial runway. Not gradually, not theoretically, 12 years gone, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. And if nothing changes between now and 2032, that same law triggers an automatic 24% cut to Social Security benefits for every retiree in America, regardless of how long you paid in, regardless of your income, regardless of anything. The people this will hurt most are the people Washington is barely discussing right now. And there is one detail in this story that most coverage is missing entirely. I am going to walk you through it. The number that matters most is not the 12 years. It is a different number, one that tells you exactly how this affects your household. I will get there in a moment. Let me start with what actually happened. In July of 2025, Congress passed legislation called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The law cut taxes and created a new deduction for Americans aged 65 and older on their Social Security income. On the surface, that sounds beneficial. For many seniors, it genuinely does reduce their tax bill in the short term. But here's what the law also did. It significantly reduced the revenue flowing into the trust funds that pay for Medicare and Social Security, because those programs are partially funded by income taxes collected on Social Security benefits. And because the new law reduced those taxes, the money going into the trust funds dropped considerably. The Congressional Budget Office published updated projections in April of 2026. They found that the Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, the fund that pays for hospital care, skilled nursing facility stays, hospice care, and home health services, is now projected to run out of money entirely by 2040. 1 year earlier, in March of 2025, the CBO projected that same fund would last until 2052. 12 years of solvency, erased in less than 12 months. But here is what those 12 years actually mean in practical terms. And this is the part that concerns every person watching this. When the Hospital Insurance Trust Fund runs out of money, federal law does not allow Medicare to borrow. It does not allow Medicare to run a deficit. It does not give Congress flexibility. The law requires that Medicare pay out only what it collects in revenue at that moment, nothing more. The CBO estimates that when the fund is exhausted in 2040, Medicare hospital payments will need to be cut by 8% immediately. By 2060, that cut grows to 10%. 8% does not sound catastrophic until you understand what Medicare Part A actually covers: inpatient hospital stays, emergency surgery, recovery in a skilled nursing facility after a major illness, hospice care. These are not optional benefits. These are the benefits seniors need most at the most vulnerable moments of their lives. And those benefits are now 14 years closer to an automatic cut than they were just 1 year ago. Now, I mentioned a second number that matters more than the 12 years. Here it is. The Social Security Trust Fund, which is separate from Medicare, faces an even more urgent timeline. The Congressional Budget Office projects the Social Security Retirement Trust Fund will be exhausted by 2032. That is 6 years from today. When that fund runs out, federal law triggers automatic across-the-board benefit cuts for every retiree in America. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan fiscal watchdog, calculated what that cut looks like in real dollars. For a typical couple retiring in 2032 or shortly after, the automatic cut equals $18,400 per year in lost benefits. Not a one-time reduction, every year, for the rest of their retirement. For a senior currently receiving $2,000 per month from Social Security, a 24% cut reduces that check to $1,220 every single month, $480 gone. That is not an abstraction. That is a utility bill. That is a car payment. That is a week of groceries. And it happens automatically, by law, the moment the trust fund hits zero, unless Congress acts to prevent it. The same legislation that accelerated these timelines, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, reduced the revenue flowing into these trust funds by approximately $169 billion over 10 years. According to the Social Security Administration's own chief actuary, the Social Security Fairness Act, a bipartisan law passed earlier in 2025 that expanded benefits for certain government workers, added another $200 billion to the shortfall over 10 years. Together, these two laws accelerated Social Security's insolvency timeline by nearly a full year and made the eventual benefit cut significantly larger than it would have been otherwise. Here is what is important to understand about how this mechanism actually works, because this is where most coverage of this topic fails people completely. These cuts are not a political choice that Congress will make in 2032. They are not a negotiation. They are not something that gets voted on when the time comes. They are automatic. They are written into existing law right now. The law says that when the trust fund balance reaches zero, the Social Security Administration is legally prohibited from paying out more than it collects in that month's revenue. Congress does not have to vote to cut your benefits. The cuts happen by default unless Congress votes to stop them. And the last time Congress successfully passed legislation to shore up Social Security was in 1983, 43 years ago. So what can you actually do with this information right now? The first thing to understand is that none of this is inevitable. Congress can act. The options available to lawmakers include increasing the payroll tax rate, raising or eliminating the cap on wages subject to Social Security taxes, currently set at $184,500 in 2026, transferring general revenue into the trust funds, modifying the benefit formula, or some combination of all of these. These are politically difficult decisions, but they are available. The program has been rescued from the brink before. The second thing to understand is what this means for your personal retirement planning right now. If you are already receiving Social Security benefits, your payments are not changing today. The trust fund still has reserves and is projected to remain solvent through 2031. You have time, but you should understand that these projections are based on current law with no congressional intervention. If you are between 55 and 65 and still deciding when to claim Social Security, these projections are directly relevant to your decision. Delaying your claim to build a higher base benefit gives you more cushion against a future percentage cut. Someone receiving $2,000 per month loses $480 in a 24% cut. Someone who delayed and receives $3,000 per month loses $720. The absolute dollar loss is larger, but the lifestyle impact depends entirely on what your other income sources look like. If you are younger and these timelines feel distant, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget said something in their most recent report that puts it plainly. They noted that the people most harmed by inaction are not the retirees of 2032. They are the workers in their 50s and early 60s right now, people planning their retirement around benefit levels that current law will not be able to deliver without congressional action. There is one thing you can do today. Regardless of your age or your political views, contact your congressional representative and your senators. Tell them you are aware of the 2032 insolvency date. Tell them you understand that automatic cuts are triggered by existing law, and tell them you expect them to be part of a solution. The Capitol switchboard number is 202-224-3121. That number connects you to the congressional switchboard, and you can ask to be transferred to the office of any representative or senator by name or state. The 12 years Congress erased from Medicare's timeline cannot be restored without legislative action. The 24% Social Security cut scheduled for 2032 will not be prevented without legislative action. This is not a partisan issue. It is an arithmetic one. And the arithmetic has never been clearer or more urgent than it is right now. If this video helped you understand what is actually happening with your Medicare and Social Security benefits, please give it a like. It helps more people find this information when they need it most. And if you want to stay updated as these trust fund deadlines get closer and Congress responds, subscribe to this channel. We cover these topics clearly without the noise. Share this with someone you know who is approaching retirement. They deserve to have this information too. Thank you for watching.